This video was brought to you by Incogni. With Hamas threatening to execute hostages and the Israeli military posed for an unprecedented ground invasion of Gaza, most of the media's attention is understandably focused on Israel's south. However, in the north, Israel has quietly been trading airstrikes with the Lebanon-based, Iran-backed militant group known as Hezbollah, who are many times more powerful than their anti-Israeli ally, Hamas. While Hezbollah's intentions are unclear, and different media outlets are claiming different things, if they were to join the war, it would be catastrophic not just for Israel, but the entire Middle East. So in this video, we're going to explain who Hezbollah are, how they've responded thus far, and whether they might actually attack Israel. So before we get to the most recent developments, we need to explain who Hezbollah actually are. While Hezbollah was only formally founded as a group back in 1982, they have their origins in the Lebanese Shia political movement of the 1970s. Like many countries in the Middle East, Lebanon's population is split into Sunni and Shia Muslims. But there's also a sizable Christian population. According to polling from 2012, Sunnis, Shias, and Catholic Christians each account for a little over a quarter of Lebanon's population, which means that Lebanon has by far the largest proportion of Christians in any Middle Eastern country. And today, the Sunnis are mostly based around the northwest, around Tripoli. The Christians are mostly along the coast and around Beirut, while the Shias are spread basically across three areas: the rural south, the Bekaa Valley in the northeast, and parts of southern Beirut. Now, the relatively even split of Sunnis, Shias, and Catholics has made population statistics highly controversial in Lebanon, with each group claiming to be the biggest in the country. And Lebanon hasn't actually held an official census since 1932 for this exact reason. Anyway, when the French took over the territory after World War I, they implemented a parliamentary system that explicitly favored the Christians, who were an outright majority at the time. However, during the 20th century, the Christian population in Lebanon shrank relative to the Muslim population. And by the 1970s, Christians no longer represented a majority in the country. Now, this was essentially for two reasons. Muslims had a higher birth rate than Christians, and many Muslim Palestinians fled from Palestine into Lebanon in 1948 and following the 1967 Arab-Israeli War. Anyway, the Lebanese Muslims began to demand better political representation, but while the Lebanese political system was somewhat amended to reflect these demographic changes, the Sunnis extracted better concessions than the poorer, more rural Shias. And when the Lebanese Shias started demanding better political representation in the mid-1970s, two divides quickly emerged. The militant versus the moderate divide, with militants advocating for more violent action in order to achieve their political end, and the moderates preferring more normal political channels, and what we might call the national versus international divide, with the nationals focused on Shia representation within Lebanon, and the internationals more interested in the wider regional struggle for Shia representation across the Middle East. Anyway, a couple of events that occurred in the late 70s and early 80s won it for the militants and the internationals. The first event was the Israeli invasion of southern Lebanon in March 1978 against the Palestinian Liberation Organization, who had relocated to Lebanon after being kicked out of Jordan in 1971. Originally, the Israelis were actually pretty well received by the local Shia because they didn't like the PLO either, but relations quickly soured, especially after Israel invaded again in 1982, and many Shias decided that they needed to militarize to guarantee their own security. The second event was the Iranian Revolution in 1979, which provided the framework for an international Shia movement and inspired Shia revolutionaries across the Middle East. Iran was also very successful at infiltrating the Lebanese Shia movement, and they were helped by the disappearance of a leading Shia cleric during a trip to Libya in 1978. Following this, in 1982, Hezbollah was secretly created by a handful of pro-Iranian Shia clerics, and it quickly established itself as the most effective militia in Lebanon, fighting a sustained guerrilla campaign against Israel in the south before Israel withdrew in 2000, and fighting with the IDF to a standstill in 2006. Today, Hezbollah is perhaps the most successful militia in the world, and far more powerful than Hamas. Largely thanks to hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Iranian support, Hezbollah now has as many as 50,000 troops and a vast arsenal of rockets and missiles. With this firepower, Hezbollah has controlled parts of southern Lebanon since 2000, where their social support programs and role as a protector against Israel made them genuinely popular. Which is why, in 2018, Hezbollah's political bloc won a majority in Lebanon's general election. Anyway, that all goes to explain why Hezbollah is probably the biggest threat to Israel's security. So, when last weekend's events occurred, many people immediately looked to see how they'd react. And so far, Hezbollah's response has been relatively muted. On Sunday, Hezbollah fired missiles at a contested part of the Golan Heights to show solidarity with Hamas, prompting a retaliatory strike from Israel on Monday, which killed 3 Hezbollah militants, which in turn prompted another barrage of artillery fire from Hezbollah, but nothing more. So, what's going to happen next? Will Hezbollah actually attack Israel? Well, no one knows for sure. So instead of giving you a yes or no answer, we're going to go through some reasons why they would and some reasons why they wouldn't. Let's start with the reasons why Hezbollah might attack. The main reason is that it's probably the best opportunity they'll get. Israel's politics and society are more divided than ever, and the IDF will have to redeploy most of their troops to the south around Gaza if they really want to stage a ground invasion. So if Hezbollah wants to land a blow on Israel, now's probably their best chance. On the other hand, there are broadly 2 reasons why Hezbollah won't attack. Firstly, with Israeli society in such a hyper-militaristic mood, any attack would incur a massive response from the IDF, which would do crippling damage to both Hezbollah and Lebanon itself. The second reason is that it wouldn't go down well with Hezbollah's Shia base or the wider Lebanese public. While Israel isn't exactly popular in Lebanon, it's unlikely that your median Lebanese citizen wants to go to war with Israel right now. Lebanon is currently suffering from a long-running economic crisis, and it frankly wouldn't be able to cope with the enormous economic and humanitarian costs of a war with Israel. In fact, Hezbollah's inability to deal with the economic crisis has already made them less popular in Lebanon, which is one of the reasons they lost their parliamentary majority in 2022. In this light, it looks like Hezbollah's response so far has been designed to signal solidarity with Hamas while avoiding a serious response from Israel. However, even if Hezbollah doesn't want to get too involved, if things in Gaza get too bad or Israel start getting too bellicose, Iran might decide that they want Hezbollah to intervene. In that case, the Hezbollah won't really have much choice, given how economically dependent they are on Iran. A couple of years ago, I was the victim of identity theft, and I only found out when I got a court letter saying that I owed money to a broadband company at an address I'd never lived at. And I'm not alone here either, with victims of data breaches rising by 41.5% in 2022. Now, all of that stolen data is very often being added to commercial databases, with data brokers potentially aggregating your personal information, including your name and aliases, social security number, login credentials, home address, location history, online activity, and more. All of which is available for purchase by businesses and could fall into the hands of criminals too. Fortunately though, Incogni are here to help. That's because Incogni reach out to data brokers on your behalf, request your data's removal, and deal with any objections. Plus, as brokers often continue to collect data even after takedown requests, Incogni continue to keep watch. So whenever a new record pops up on a data broker site, Incogni will automatically take care of that too. And even if you're not worried about your data being stolen, we all deal with endless junk mail and robocallers, both issues that Incogni's services could help cut down. So create an account using our link in the description, grant Incogni the ability to work on your behalf, and sit back as they make you safer. Plus, by using our link, you'll get an exclusive 60% off an annual Incogni plan. Thanks for checking them out, using our link, and thanks to Incogni for sponsoring this video.